Today on The Young and the Restless, Audra and Tucker part ways. Devin has words with Nate, and Billy warns Jack about Ashley's coup plan. In Victoria's office at Newman, Nate tells her how she inspires him to be his very best. Nick interrupts and asks to speak to his sister. After some talk about podcasting, Nate exits. Nick wants to discuss budgets, but his sister assumes he's there to lecture her again, glaring and gritting his teeth. She complains about him riling their dad up about her relationship with Nate. Nick concedes that he may have spoken out of turn, but says he's concerned about the company. She compares this to what happened between him and Sally. Dismissing this, her brother says it's not the same. Sally was never gunning for his job. She doesn't think they can hold a grudge against Hastings given that he was working for them as a mole at Chancellor Winters. Victoria suggests Nick is trying to penalize Nate for his ambitions. Nick still thinks there is a giant red flag waving that she's refusing to see. His sister insists this will not be a repeat of the Ashland Locke affair. If there is anyone who needs to be worried about their future at the company, it's not Nate, it's Nick. At the penthouse, Abby and Devin talk about how cute their kid is. She's glad that he's excited to get back to work at Chancellor Winters and didn't buy Tucker's company. He's relieved he doesn't have that on his plate now too. She puts her arms around him and they talk about their busy day. Between kisses, she tells him he needs to go or they won't end up being productive. They can make lots of love later. On his way out, he notices the hallway is full of boxes. It looks like Nate and Elena are moving. Devin stops by Crimson Lights and finds Elena sitting on the patio. He asks about the boxes in the hallway. She admits they are hers and explains she found out Nate was sleeping with Victoria. He never saw that coming, she sure did. It's been rough. She thought Nate would change back into the man she loved. He had the chance to turn his life around but threw her trust back in her face. Obviously he was caught up in something. Elena is sure that he was wrapped up in power, sex, and a woman who has the same priorities as he does. Devin knows he's in no position to judge, but is sure she's better than his cousin. Elena is just relieved to be done with Nate. He's swimming with sharks now, and as soon as Victoria smells blood in the water, he's in trouble. Nick wanders in to see Sharon. She senses he's annoyed by something. He needs a distraction, so she tells him about babysitting area, and then they talk about Faith coming back soon. He notices the bottle of champagne and jokingly asks if she's turning this into a bar or celebrating something. She explains that it was sent anonymously with a cryptic note about memories being what life is made of. Picking up the bottle, he says it's a nice vintage and notices a red smudge on it. It looks like blood. Maybe it's just a red wine stain. She says the color is off for that. She's completely clueless about where it came from. He suggests that she should not drink it. This is kind of weird, isn't it? She muses. Despite that, she thinks it would be a shame to waste it. Nick tells her to go with her gut. After he takes off, she looks around and someone seems to be watching her. Sharon ultimately decides to drop the bottle in the trash. Audra bumps into Tucker in Chancellor Park. She doubts it's the town's charm that has him sticking around. He must not be staying for the pickleball, so he must still be pining for the love of his life. Guffawing, he suggests that she's covering for her intense jealousy. He informs her he lives in the Abbott house now. What's rent like? She asks. Rent-free baby, he says, before prodding her about wetting her head against the Nate wall. She claims things are going well. She was hoping for more entertainment, but she thinks that things could pan out even better the way they are playing now. Tucker knows exactly how much she liked to mix business and pleasure. She says that Nate is the kind of tool she needs to get what she wants and makes a jab about how unuseful McCall proved to be. She's sure that he saw something in her to keep her around for so long. He says this is a parting of the ways for them and he wishes her well. She wishes him well with Ashley, adding, I guess. Before he leaves, Tucker warns her that Nate has a history of turning on those he's closest to. He can be ruthless to anyone he thinks is in his way. Audra walks into Crimson Lights to chat with Elena about the Nate situation. She's sure that Nate and Victoria will get careless and everyone will figure out about them. The doctor doesn't want to hear the gory details. Her friend imagines she's thinking about payback, or doesn't she want them to suffer consequences for what they did to her? Elena is confident they will blow themselves up. She may not have had a chance to lecture Victoria, but she did get to throw a drink at Nate. When she admits she still has a lot to say to the Newman, Audra tips her off that she's likely alone in her office right now. Nate bumps into Devin in Chancellor Park. He thanks him for the invitation to Neil's memorial. Devin is sorry that Elena wasn't there, but now he knows why. He takes a jab at him for having sex with his boss. Nate reminds him that he was caught with his pants down just a few months ago. Devin shoots back that he got with Elena through cheating. He doesn't know if Nate has changed or if this is just the real him finally coming out. Nate insists he's always been the same person and Devin has always condescended to him as the convenient cousin. Nate returns to Victoria's office and asks what's going on with Nick. He seems tense around him. She explains he thinks that Nate is gunning for his job. He has a hard time getting past people's transgressions and holds them against them. Nate admits her brother isn't totally wrong. He does think about rising to the top. As they chuckle about that, Elena saunters in, surprised to see them with their clothes on. Sarcastically, she notes how encinch they are and taunts them about how careless they have been with their dirty little secret. They are ruining their reputations for a tawdry little affair. She's quitting the podcast and doesn't want to hear any nonsense about her contract. She'll be focusing her attention on medicine, a career that helps people instead of only caring about bank accounts. She should have known that Nate is just pathetic. They're both damned pathetic. She walks out. Jack and Billy are talking business at Society. As Billy discussing the new grooming line, he eventually realizes his brother is not listening. He assumes he's distracted by Diane. Jack admits it. They are working in something to help her case, and he's hopeful they can clear her name. That means he can officially focus on Jabut. He asks what he needs to know before he jumps back in. Ashley might be planning a coup. Billy warns him. His brother can't believe it. He knows how concerned she is about Diane, but he thought that his sister's threats were just an intimidation tactic. How can she justify this? Billy explains she thinks he's too devoted to a woman who could wind up in jail, and she's been rallying the troops to convene a meeting. Jack asks his brother if he also thinks he should step down at Jabut. Billy has complete confidence in his leadership and thinks their dad would be proud of him. That means a lot to his brother. Jack thinks their sister is being absurd and tells his brother how great he's done since he returned to the company. That's something that Billy is thankful for, but he admits that he worries Jack may not have been thinking of how his behavior could look to the outside world. Thanking him for his honesty, Jack walks off. Abby arrives and chats with Billy about all the drama in the Abbott house. They worry about what that's doing to Summer. She's even more worried about Tucker being on the way to winning her mom back. Jack storms into the Abbott house and yells for his sister. She's not there, but Tucker is. McCall thought the manners in the house would be more genteel. Besides, even if he knew where she was, he wouldn't tell him when he's upset like this. He reminds Jack that he warned him not to hurt Ashley and says it goes double for him. This infuriates Jack. McCall warns him of what he's capable of and tells him not to make him his enemy.